the leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. It is Pearl Harbor Day, Monday, 7th of December in the year of our Lord 2015. And unlike Mondays over the past 4 and 5 months, I am not joined in the studio by Rick Trader, but I am delighted to be joined again by, a co-host that I've had the pleasure of sharing the microphone with for a very long time, just not recently. But today we renew our on-air collaboration, and with that, let me welcome Sharon Angle.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be on a marvelous Monday with you.
It's a marvelous Monday. We're into the Christmas, or actually the Advent season, but most of us know it as the Christmas season. And we have a pretty good lineup of guests to kick off the week here at Conservative Commandos. I didn't check with you in advance of the show, Sharon, but are you able to give us something of a bio on our first guest at 3:35?
Oh, I absolutely am. We're going to be having Jude Eden, who's a contributing writer to the stream and a combat veteran. She served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 2004 to 2008 and was stationed at Camp Lejeune. She deployed to Iraq from 2005 to 2006 to support Camp Fallujah's communications network and was also assigned to entry checkpoint duty with the Marine Infantry. She now works as an IT systems administrator and writes for politicalanimalblog.com. And she's written a blog, Women in Combat, What Repealing the Combat Exclusion Means for Our Military. This is really appropriate for today. As you mentioned, this Pearl Harbor Day. My father, a World War II veteran, never ceased to mention it on December 7th. It was a big day in his life, probably big like it's big for us to remember 9/11. And I think it's still big, December 7th. I'm glad you mentioned it. And it's good to have Jude Eden with us today to talk about things that have to do with the common defense, if you will, and those protectors of freedom that are all over the world representing the United States in such a superior way. So we're really glad to have Jude with us at 3:35, and then I guess you have a guest.
I have a subject at 4:05, Sharon, that's too big for one guest. It is too big for one guest, so we're bringing in a duo. at 4:05. We're having the return of a long-standing regular fixture, at least on days when I host, and that is Lindsay Levine, the Green Machine, who has been pulling back the curtain on numerous green energy schemes, basically old-fashioned crony capitalism wrapped up in some vague and somewhat more pleasant cover as some way to minimize carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. But all these stories have a common thread, and the common thread is that we, the people, end up paying premiums far too much for far too little, and the donor class that are in good stead with the political class get to cash very fat paychecks. He's going to be joined by John Nichols. Now he's a real energy activist from the first state of Delaware, and I'm proud to call him a good friend of mine. And he has been challenging Bloom Energy and their abuse of the ratepayers' checkbooks in the state of Delaware. So he's been the one who has been the voice to take the rich and powerful to court. And that's our tag team for 4:05. That's John Nichols and Lindsay Levine, the Green Machine. Then at 4:35, who do we have coming in, Sharon?
Well, we have Peter J. Pitts, a former FDA Associate Commissioner who is currently president of the Center of Medicine in the Public Interest, a nonprofit that gets funding from the pharmaceutical industry. And he's written an article, Obamacare Slippery Slope to Single-Payer System. So we're back with Obamacare. We've got quite a lineup and quite a variety today, Kevin, and I'm hoping that your two guests will fill us in on the Paris conference. I've been wanting to know what the experts really say about the experts who are expounding there, and I can only say that those experts in Paris seem more political than scientific.
Well, if you happen to be a government research scientist engaged in anything that's related to weather research or climate research, you better know what side of the bread your butter is on, because you will never, ever see a promotion and an increase in income if you happen to question the emperor's clothes. So you'd better sign up to understanding what the new Soviet man looks like. You better sign up to understand what the Aryan supremacy movement of the 1930s looks like, because these were government-funded phony philosophies by the communists and by the Nazis. And I think today we have government-funded philosophies related to carbon dioxide. And neither John Nichols nor Lindsay Levine subscribe to playing those games. So Peter Pitts, John Nichols, Lindsay Levine, and then Jude Eden. And I have a commentary after we come back from a break that we'll go into in about 5 minutes, and it's somewhat appropriate for this day. But what news are you seeing on the radar screen, Sharon?
We had so much news last week. It's kind of, we're in that down breath, I think. There really isn't too much except just the expounding on what happened last week in San Bernardino. And I think that's on everybody's radar. I think everyone's very cautious, concerned, nervous about what the next steps are and who could be next. I think when a community like San Bernardino, 200,000 people, is attacked by terror, I think most of us that live in the flyover country think that this will only happen in the big cities, and that's not a real big city, and it happened there, and it happened in a planned and totally outrageous and malicious way, and I think that most everyone is still in shock over that, Kevin. And so I think the news media is really kind of taking a breather, if you will, from that. And of course, the other big thing that was on the radar last week was this Paris conference, and we'll be talking to our guests about that and what's going on there. And then, as always, on December 7th, we want to remember those patriots who have fought so hard to keep us free. And then we watch as a presidency in 7 short years has just taken our military on a downhill spiral. to a place that we hardly know that we are that strong country anymore. But I believe it still, Kevin, and I know you do too.
Oh no, we're a strong. We're a very, very strong nation, but we simply have feckless and incompetent leadership. If Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Susan Rice and the small circle at the top of the Democrat Party happened to be in the White House in June of 1944, there's a pretty fair chance that they would have given back Omaha Beach after all the sacrifices, because they really wanted to extend an olive branch to the Nazis. This cast of characters in the White House has essentially, they kicked the main tent pole down in Iraq. However we got to Iraq, and whatever mistakes were made during our years there, when George W. Bush left office, that place was secure. Al-Qaeda in Iraq had been destroyed because coalitions had been created with different tribal organizations who came to rely on and trust Americans in that country. So stability finally returned. The bombings had ended. People, in fact, the refugee problem at that point were hundreds of thousands of refugees from Iraq who had fled the violence earlier were streaming back in 2008 to pick up their lives there in safety and security. And Barack Obama and his circle decided to kick that tent pole of success down and play a great game of let's pretend. And as ISIS emerged as the next generational version of Al-Qaeda in 2011 and 2012, many of us recall that President Obama mocked the Republicans and considered he defined ISIS as the JV, and we should not overestimate the potentialities. Well, we've seen what ISIS potentialities are as recently as last week and as nearby as in the heartland in San Bernardino. And as much as President Obama would like to turn this into a Second Amendment issue, there's a sticky thing called the facts and the truth that stand in the way. And this is just a sordid case of Islamic terror being sponsored and put forth by longtime residents in this country and aided and abetted by what I guess broadly is called the fiancé/wife of one of the two perpetrators. So we have some serious problems in this country with Islamic terror. We have a problem with homegrown Islamic terror. But the first problem that has a timestamp on it, because it will go away in January of 2017, is we have a president named Barack Hussein Obama, and he refuses to acknowledge what roughly 90% of other Americans can readily see, Sharon.
That's right. Well, I know we're going to go into a break right now, Kevin, and you're going to be right back with your commentary. So we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio New Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. We'll be right back after this break with Sharon Angle, Kevin Wade, and a commentary by Kevin Wade on today, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
You say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, www.ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 1 p.m. for you late risers. Log on to www.roarradio.net, roarradio.net, and at 6 p.m., log on to the Pundit Press. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any telephone on the planet by calling 832-999-1199. That's 832-1199. Sharon, it's December 7, and with your good blessings, I'd like to use a few minutes to give my commentary.
Oh, please go ahead. I always enjoy these, Kevin.
December 7th is memorialized by Franklin Roosevelt as a day that will live in infamy. It marks the attack on Pearl Harbor by forces of the Japanese Empire, killing several thousand unsuspecting Americans and sinking America's Pacific battleship fleet. America, however, unprepared, went to war that Sunday, December 7, 1941. An outpouring of patriotism ensured public support for all the sacrifices needed to destroy the evil unleashed by the fascists in Japan and in Europe. The partisan differences of that moment were set aside. National politics ended at America's shoreline. There was no move to attack or discredit the conduct of the war, including its many setbacks and mistakes. Such an attack would have been seen by the vast swath of the American public as traitorous. There is no such unanimity today. One of the motivators of the continuous stream of attacks on George W. Bush while he was President of the United States and his war on terror was to undermine his popularity as a wartime president and to provide an opening for the Democrat Party. There was no considering the effect that criticism might have on the outcome of the war or the dangers brought in real time to our soldiers in combat. Now we've seen for more than 6 years how Democrats fight terrorism. They don't. To Democrats, the war is their chance to bomb the enemy with empty rhetoric and to visualize grand illusions of some distant victory brought by liberal thought exercises. In fact, the Democrat strategy to fight the war on terror is an example of how to turn aside your allies and how to embolden your opponents. As the Obama years conclude, there will be a rise and a swelling in public opinion to truly meet the needs for security in our homeland. And this will result, as a consequence, in a new and this time, very effective set of combat operations in ISIS land. Now, it is undeniable, in my opinion, that after President Obama leaves office, there's a lot of mistakes that are going to have to be recorrected, so to speak. We have to get back on a track that leads to success and security. And I know there's going to be a move to mobilize large forces, ground forces, and send them to the Middle East to dispense with ISIS. However, I think before we the people give our consent to major military operations, there's a few other things we have to ask for first. One, before we send other soldiers over to become disabled veterans, we have to today keep all of our commitments to all of America's veterans. That's step one. No more sending our boys off to fight and have them come back to broken promises. So let's fix the VA system as step one. Step two, let's be realistic and understand that the threat on the homeland does not come from Lutherans, it doesn't come from Greek Orthodox, it doesn't come from mainstream Methodists or Baptists. Instead of using blanket surveillance of 300 million Americans and taking away our freedoms, as you claim to fight for America, how about you use the surveillance powers of the federal government judiciously with court orders and focused on those groups who have shown a propensity to try to bring down the security and peace of our great nation. So let's secure the freedoms of 300 million Americans and focus on visitors from other lands who come here, perhaps with intent in their hearts. So before we go off on another Mideast adventure, which will be necessary in order to end this threat, let's first honor our commitments to our veterans, and number two, let's ensure that these soldiers do not go away and then return to an America that was lost because we lost our freedoms. And with that, let me say we have our hands full thanks to the mistakes of Barack Obama, and we have to have some unparalleled unanimity as we repair the 7 years of errors that have been fallen on our shoulders and work as people who truly love peace to give a land of prosperity and peace to the next generation. I'm Kevin Wade, and Sharon, that's how I see it.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to hear you talk about solutions. I know that that's important to the American people right now. We don't see a lot of hope, and even though this president offered us hope and change, we saw all the change, but no hope. And I'm glad that you're there, Kevin, providing solutions that provide hope for America. And I'm glad that you outlined some steps. You know, it's not just complaining. we need to know the direction. We need to have a vision and a strategy, and I'm glad that you're thinking about what that strategy is and how do we get to a better place from here. I couldn't help but think about what you said, that we may have to go back. We may have to commit our children once more to fight. It's a hard thing for a mother to hear. And I'm not sure. Do you think that there's any possibility that we can get away without that, Kevin?
No. They're growing too fast, and ISIS grows when they win. There's an expression in the Middle East that Arabs like to ride a strong horse. I'll tell you, they don't care which direction that horse is headed. They just want to ride the strong horse. And when they see ISIS winning, as they saw Al-Qaeda winning before, as they saw Saddam Hussein winning before, that was a magnet in that culture to draw in more support. And ISIS will continue to grow dramatically until they are defeated in a very public way, very recognizable way. And then you'll see their support evaporate. But that won't happen with Jordanian fighters from the nation of Jordan. That won't help with soldiers from Lebanon. It's going to take the type of military leadership that only the U.S. can provide. But before we go down that road again, we've got to fix certain things. And one is we have to get right with our veterans already. We have to fix the VA system. And I don't mean spend $5 more and give a speech. I mean we have to overhaul the management there so that we truly take care of our veterans. And then we have to ensure that we haven't lost our freedoms while we're busy fighting in the Middle East. And that means we have to get some practical viewpoint about who is or is not a threat to this nation. And for 95% of the people, they have posed and never will pose a threat. So let's not do blanket surveillance on the entire community when you really just want to see who one person is calling. So let's use some common sense as we use our security systems to ensure the safety of our communities while we get ready to clean up the mess in the Middle East, Sharon. Sharon, you want to take us out? We're going over.
Yes, we do. We will be right back with you after this break. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7, all.coms. We'll be right back after this break with Jude, Sharon Engel, and Kevin Wade.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land, to save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stocking. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Kevin Wade, joined by Sharon Angle. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. log on to Leading Edge Radio Network. At 1 o'clock, log on to roarradio.net. And for you people working first shift and you get back for dinner at 6 p.m., log on to the punditpress.com. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. That's 832-999-1199. 999-1199. Sharon, I understand our first guest is on the line, and would you please take the important role of making her introduction and leading this conversation?
It's my pleasure, Rick. I mean, Kevin. Sorry, we get caught up with Rick, don't we? It's my pleasure, Kevin, to introduce to our audience today Jude Eden, who's a contributing writer to The Stream and a combat veteran. She served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 2004 to 2008 and was stationed at Camp Lejeune. She deployed to Iraq from 2005 to 2006 to support Camp Fallujah's communications network and was also assigned to entry checkpoint duty with the Marine Infantry. She now works as an IT systems administrator and writes for politicalanimalblog.com. Jude, welcome to Conservative Commando's radio show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure and our honor to have you on this Pearl Harbor Day memorial, if you will. And I think it's so fitting that we talk about women in combat. You were a woman and are a woman in combat. And you've written an article about what this means to repeal the combat exclusion, what it will mean to the military, what it will mean to women in combat. Jude, give us a little brief introduction to this article. What made you want to write it, and just kind of your thoughts as a woman in combat about what it's like to be in combat as a woman?
Well, first of all, I need to draw a distinction, which I'm constantly drawing every time I talk about this, and that is that being deployed to the combat zone doesn't equate to being in combat. I did not see combat action. I was not on combat missions. Everyone who deploys to a war zone during wartime is considered a combat veteran. So I actually prefer to call myself an Iraq War veteran as a distinction, because what we do in support units to prepare for and perform our duties in the combat zone is pretty much a world away from what is required of and what the infantry guys do on the ground there. And that's an important distinction to make, because the American media has been pushing this narrative that being in the combat zone is the same thing as combat, and it is not by a long shot. The women who have been wounded and even died in the combat zone, most of them were not, even those who were engaged by the enemy, they were not on direct ground combat missions where you go after the enemy. Now, when I was assigned to do checkpoint duty with a team of females and we worked with the infantry, that was a dangerous job. We were on the outskirts. We were frisking women for explosives as they came into the city. We were convoying outside the wire all the time. We had a couple of close calls of our own and scrapes. But that is not the same thing as being an infantry guy, being a grunt, going for these, house to house, hunting the enemy. So it's a huge distinction and a very important one, because when this administration or anyone who's been pushing for this is saying women are fighting and dying just like the men, that's not true. So it's an important distinction to make. The main thing, I've been writing for my own blog on this since 2013, since the initial decision was made. And then, for the last couple of years, I've been speaking out on this as much as possible, because people are really rather ignorant about what direct combat actually is. It's false to say that technology has changed direct ground combat or it has in some ways changed the way we fight war. However, the ability to strike from a distance or use drones does not change the requirements of direct ground combat, and doesn't change the need for eyes and ears and people on the ground, both conducting missions and being the eyes and ears for fighter pilots dropping their ordnance on the enemy. So that's just to start with that.
Well, I'm glad you made that distinction for us, because I think, as you said, it's a critical distinction, and it really opens it up for the rest of your article, where you do go into what combat really is. And I was especially impressed with your take on the enemy here, and they don't have any respect for women, and you talk about that in this article. You say, think about our foreign enemies, from Al-Qaeda to Taliban to ISIS, raping and beheading their way across Iraq, and imagine your daughters there, not in support, but going after these bad guys where they live, hard, fast, and with the greatest possible violence. So it's not just that they would be going after them with that. There is a danger of violence to women that men really can't even fathom the degree to which someone who wants to be violent against a woman will go. And I think you kind of opened that up here. Would you go on into that? What the difference is between fighting women and fighting men?
Oh, absolutely. And as somebody who did martial arts for many years, I became a black belt before going into the Marines, because, I just wanted to be able to defend myself. I'm not a feminist. I could be considered a de facto feminist because of all the things that I've done. But, I thought, I can't rely on a guy, to protect me at any given moment. And so, I took being able to defend myself very seriously. And that's why I started doing martial arts. But what I've been telling people, asking people to think about is, you really need to think to yourself, would I put my daughter in a cage fight with a member of ISIS? No rules, no referee, and by the way, they're on methamphetamines, making them 10 times harder to kill. What I was alluding to before when I said technology has not changed direct ground combat, fighting hand-to-hand is not a relic of the past. If you get to know Iraq and Afghanistan veterans of the infantry, or if you read their accounts, they're full of stories where ammo ran out, the gun jammed, they're going house to house, and they're face-to-face, they're right next to these people, they're on top of them, and they're often forced to reckon with their bare hands. And, these guys, I'm grateful to them that they've told these stories, and they're out there. You would think that for all the violence in Hollywood war movies, that people would kind of have a sense, even historically, ruling out, the big blockbusters, but even historical war movies, you would think that people might have a better sense of what direct ground combat and sleeping in the dirt and the mud and the junk, for days and sometimes weeks on end, that's just, it's just as bad as it is for men, it's that much worse for women. We have more considerations and more risks than men, and that's why even if you have a couple of really unusual women who are incredibly strong and can make some of the infantry standards, they still bring with them much higher and more numerous risks. And anytime you're adding risk, that's adding weakness to a unit. Adding risk is just asking for more trouble. We also, are societally saying it's okay for women to be subjected to the most ruthless violence you can imagine, as long as it's at the hands of the enemy, and that's absolute garbage. And that's, one of many reasons why, regardless of a couple of women who can make the standards, this is not an equal opportunity for women. And repealing the entire combat exemption now means that all active duty women are subject to the same involuntary assignment to these units as men are. And that is, that's no, far-fetched thing. They'll absolutely take a top performer from a unit and say, hey, you top performer, you athletic, hard-charging gal, we're going to put you here because we need tough, strong, high performers in this unit. Now that this has been implemented, and then they put her in that unit. she's competing with men with whom she can't really compete, because as strong as she may be, she's still not in competition with those type of men. Opponents of repealing or advocates, I should say, for repealing the exemption are always talking about, well, men wash out of the training too. But those men don't make it. So they're irrelevant. Right. It's a totally irrelevant argument that there are some men who don't make it. Yeah. And those are the men who are trying out are already at the top of their field, usually trying out for the infantry, or especially the special forces. You're talking about the 1% of the top 10%.
Jude, this is Kevin Wade. Jude, this is Kevin Wade. We're up against a hard break. Would you stay with us through this break so we can continue this conversation on the other side?
Yeah, I sure will.
Very good. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360 AM. Our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting a Liberty Radio Network, and AM, FM 24/7. I'm Kevin Wade. I'm joined by Sharon Angle. We have Jude Eden on the phone. You stay with us. We will be right back.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And that is Colonel Alan West. I'm Kevin Wade, joined by Sharon Angle. On the phone with us right now is Jude Eden. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net. That's ROAR radio.net. And at 6 p.m., log on to the Pundit Press. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any telephone on planet Earth by calling 832-999-1199. Some toll charges may apply. Check with your service supplier. Sharon, Jude was good enough to stay with us. Would you please pick up this interview? We have about 4 minutes going into the break.
I sure will. And Jude, I want you to quickly just go through the differences. I thought it was interesting in your article. You say that even if it weren't so, repealing the ban would still be expensive, untenable, and deadly. Women on the front lines are at higher risk of capture and torture as high-value targets. They're more susceptible to infection, need more accommodations to maintain hygiene, and to state what ought to be obviously are uniquely capable of getting pregnant. You just really go right for it. And this, on the heels of repealing this, talk about how it also opens women up for the draft, if we should reinstitute the draft.
Right. That is something that people are only going to start. I think they're just now starting to think about it, and that it's really only going to come home to them when their own daughters, and for young women when they themselves have to go register for selective service. People have been talking about it. A lot of people haven't been listening, but more and more people are saying this. You know, that's the next thing. Advocates for women in combat have been pushing this for a long time. They've been pushing it since right after Vietnam. During Vietnam, they were pushing it with ERA, and actually that's why ERA didn't pass, because whenever we've asked the American people, do you want to subject your daughters to the draft, the answer has been a resounding no. And that's actually a big reason why this whole thing is so outrageous. First of all, that Leon Panetta could repeal the combat exemption by signing a memo. I mean, that is absolutely outrageous. It's not his decision to make. He can't make it that way. And Congress did nothing about it. This is Congress's purview, because oversight is their duty for this, and allocating and paying for the military is their purview. Every time we've had this kind of discussion before, it's been the subject of presidential commissions and open debate and vote, because this is our decision, not theirs. This is the people's decision through their representatives. Then, even more outrageous, Carter himself making this decision. This is not his decision to make. One man making this decision that affects all active duty women, by the way, 92.5% of which say they do not want, at least in the Army, according to a 2014 poll they did of their enlisted women, 92.5% of them said, no, we don't want this. We don't want to be assigned to combat units. There are similar surveys in the Marines. So, the fact that this decision is made by one man, somebody who never served in uniform, let alone in the infantry, and somebody who's a political appointee, not somebody who's accountable to anybody. He's just a mouthpiece of the president, and this is all of a piece. He's been chipping away at the military since he got into office, and this is all part of the quote-unquote fundamental transformation.
And you pointed out so well in your article, Jude, I just really want to applaud you for putting the truth to this issue. And that's really what we're discussing here, is there is a truth, and there are differences between men and women, and there are differences between men and women soldiers that just physiologically we cannot get around. Jude, we're right up against it again on a hard break, and we want to get our listeners to a place where they can read more of your blogging. Could you give us a way to follow you on the internet?
Oh, yeah. People can actually see my stuff at politicalanimalblog.com. That's my website. You can also follow me on Twitter at Jude_Eden. And, I also write for stream.org, but I always post all my articles on my website, politicalanimalblog.com.
Thank you so much, June Eden, for being with us and discussing women in combat and what repealing the combat exclusion means to our military. I would just encourage all of our listeners to go and read that entire article. It's very good. Thank you again, Jude, for being
Thanks for having me
here on Conservative. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We are on a break, and we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AMFM247all.com. We'll be right back after this break with Kevin Wade, Sharon Engel, and two guests talking about our favorite subject, one of our favorite subjects, the climate change.
I'm crazy.
60 AM, WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia.
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stocking. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I am not Colonel Alan West. I am Kevin Wade. It's Monday, and I'm joined by Sharon Angle. Sharon, how are you doing so far in this show on Monday, December 7th?
Well, we're doing great, aren't we, Kevin? We've just had some terrific guests so far, and you've got some more.
Well, yeah, we're going to cover a subject that is too big for one guest. We've got two recurring guests, actually. Lindsay Levine, the Green Machine, also known as the Thermonator. The Thermonator will be joining us and is on the line, as well as John Nichols, who is what I'll call a real affordable energy activist in my home state, the first state of Delaware. And each have been fighting the battle of crony capitalism from maybe different geographic areas, but against really the same monster that continues to consume the hard-earned dollars in our pocketbooks. And with that, let me welcome John Nichols and Lindsay Levine to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Yeah, hi, Kevin. Hi, John.
Hello, Lindsay. Kevin, thanks for having us on.
Well, let me start off by saying Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to all. We're an ecumenical group here. Our focus is on those who are trying to pilfer money by charging us too much for the wrong thing. You have been, John Nichols, you have been a voice, and maybe one of the early and original voices in the wilderness, pointing out that there's something wrong with the electric rates that many people in Delaware pay. And I understand that very recently the legislative folks down in Dover, the state's capital, have changed how electric bills will be prepared and sent to their customers. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks again for having us on. The Delaware Public Service Commission met last week, at the end of last week, and they decided that they would break out as a line item the Bloom Energy fuel cell charge. In Delaware, under the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard, which is a system whereby a percentage of your electricity has to be provided by alternative energy sources. Typically, that's solar and wind generation. But in Delaware, they allowed these subsidies to be carved out for the benefit of one particular company, and that company's Bloom Energy. And so far, Lindsay has calculated that we've paid, as Delmarva Power customers, $100 million. Pardon me, $100 million. That's correct. That's a lot of money. I can't believe it. I say that, and I just can't believe how much that is, Kevin. That number represents 50% of the credits that are going to be available for subsidizing alternative energy fuels. And last week, as I said, the Public Service Commission agreed to put that cost on the bills for the Delmarva Power ratepayers so that they would know how much they were paying, and hopefully to whom. The to whom question still is going to have to be satisfied. That was not decided at the last meeting, that they would identify the fuel cell company as Bloom Energy specifically. It could simply be listed as a qualified fuel cell company, but not Bloom Energy.
And let me go to Lindsay. Lindsay, how is it that a state that only has 3 counties and something along the lines of 850,000 people, how in the world could their upcharge for electricity now accumulate in total $100 million?
Well, it's very expensive electricity from a dirty, unreliable source. Delawareans were promised reliable, clean, and affordable power. And what they got was unreliable, dirty, because we know they have solid waste with sulfur that ends up at an EPA licensed facility for treatment, and very expensive power. Now, John's $100 million is just for the 44 months that have happened since the start of the project. The project carries on another 18 years, and by my estimate, a total of $600 million will be paid, unless it's stopped.
Now,
that's what happened in Delaware, is you guys got taken by a crooked governor and a not-so-honest company.
Well, I had some real questions about the folks in Legislative Hall, and John Nichols, you can correct me on this, but I believe the folks in Legislative Hall, that's where they do the legislation in the first state of Delaware, somehow redefined methane, natural gas, as a renewable energy source.
Yes, they did. When they passed the legislation that provided for the adoption of the Bloom tariff, they made the determination that if the fuel cell, in this case the company providing it is Bloom Energy, could use hydrogen gas as its fuel source, then it would qualify under the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard program, and the company would then be eligible for the subsidies. And in Delaware, as I said, what they did is they carved out 50% of the subsidies that would have been paid to, had Bloom not been adopted, to solar and wind. They carved those subsidies out and they paid it to just one company. But Kevin, the biggest problem, as Lindsay explained, is you have that 18 years remaining on this 21-year tariff. And the legislators, when they adopted this tariff, the legislation leading to the tariff, they said that in the event that a future General Assembly ever attempted to change this, then, or did in fact change it, then all the money that would have been paid to Bloom Energy, the $600 million that Lindsay mentioned, minus the $100 million that's already been paid, that money would be collected from the ratepayers of Delmarva Power and paid to Bloom Energy in a lump sum, not discounted, which means they would be receiving $500 million all at one time if a future General Assembly ever tried to end this program. Why only 3 representatives in the General Assembly elected to vote against this with that provision in the legislation? I'll never be able to understand. Now, we were in the midst of the Great Recession, and it was sold as a jobs bill. But 21 years with no changes permitted and the assumption that this would be the best technology 21 years from the date of adoption was just ridiculous. No one should have voted for it. And as I said, only 3 people in the General Assembly, Senator Colin Benini, who's running for governor in Delaware, Representative Peterman, and also Senator Dave Lawson. Those were the only 3 in the entire General Assembly who had the courage to say, no, I'm not going to vote for something like this.
Well,
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now you brought up that they believed they were bringing in a level of a type of technology that was going to serve the interests of the people in Delaware. Now let's turn it back to Lindsay, and let's talk about whether or not that technology that was selected on this sweetheart contract, in fact, met the promises.
Well, I've maintained and I've proved, and I think it will eventually get to some court or some legislation in Delaware, that the permit for the actual plant is fake. The plant that generates the electricity is in the coastal zone, and there's a Coastal Zone Act in Delaware that protects the coastal zone. And Bloom creates solid waste with sulfur that gets taken to this EPA facility that we now know is in Texas for treatment. So it's got hazardous material that's being taken out of the protected coastal zone, and this material was never really disclosed in the permit that O'Mara, who was the Secretary of DENREC, gave to Bloom. So the permit is fake. Not only is the permit fake, the actual tariff that charges people monthly does not match the fake permit. The tariff allows for much more expensive use of natural gas than the permit. So we have a situation where there's a bogus tariff, a fake permit, and people getting shafted, and Mark Howell and his team need to really be held accountable for all of this. So the only avenue that actually has yielded is this public service meeting that John went to and got. But I think the next place that actually will start yielding some results is the Delaware Association of Professional Engineers, because they license professional engineers in the state, and they've been told that 5 professional engineers, actually there's only 4 because one of them pretended to be a professional engineer.
Lindsay, may I interrupt right now? Lindsay, can I interrupt because we're up on a hard break? I'd like to continue this subject about the Delaware Association of Professional Engineers when we come back. Would you and John both stay with us?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break for about 3 minutes. We'll come back on the other side. If you would like to hear a replay of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., as a little something after your lunch, log on to roarradio.net, R-O-A-R radio.net, and at 6 p.m., while you're having your dinner, take the edge off drink, log on to thepunditpress.com. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone on the planet by calling 832-999-1199. I'm Kevin Wade. I'm joined by Sharon Angle. We've got some guests who are telling us the backstory about Bloom Energy, and really kind of a stalking horse for too many green energy scams taking place in our country. You stay with us. We will be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. I'm Kevin Wade, joined by Sharon Angle. We're coming to you live from the CCRS Network Studios, WNJC, 1360 AM, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world at a whole bunch of places. And if you're listening to us around the world, well, you know what place you're listening on. We're very fortunate to have a kind of a tag team right now. We have Lindsay Levine, the Thermonator, the Green Machine, as well as my very good friend John Nichols, talking about the excesses and abuses and the stretching of the truth in securing permits and approvals for the Bloom Energy Bloom Box in the Bloom Doggle, as some say, in the state of Delaware. Lindsay Levine, thank you for staying with us. You were talking about the Delaware Association of Professional Engineers. That's an esteemed organization that kind of vets individuals to see that they're qualified to describe themselves as professionally prepared to meet the needs of the public in the state of Delaware. And I'll let you pick it up from there. You talked about 5 engineers.
Okay, so they have bylaws that say that professional engineers have to protect the well-being and safety of the public. And on that basis, I asked that Professional Engineering Association that issues professional engineering licenses to investigate 5 people because the hazardous sulfur waste was never permitted. There's 2 that work for a consulting firm and 3 that work for DENREC. Rapidly, the guy who's the chairman of the Committee on Ethics, DAPE, it's called Delaware Association of Professional Engineers, called me, his name's Dr. Thompson, and told me that he had no record of one of the people being a professional engineer in Delaware. So I said, well, that's even worse because we have a lady. We have her business card. John Nichols has a business card, and it says professional engineer on that. So she's actually masquerading as a professional engineer and works for the DENREC, which is a state agency, issuing permits. So I've actually told them that any permit she's worked on for €12 or so is probably invalid, but let's focus on the Bloom Doggle. And so they are now investigating the conduct of these professional engineers. They haven't given me an answer. My worry is that they report to the governor. In fact, he wrote me, this Thompson guy wrote me a an email that they do report to the governor. Now, you've got this crooked governor that came up with the boondoggle, with people reporting to it, but so do actually the people at the Public Service Commission, and they had guts enough to tell the governor to hop it, with what Nichols did with the building statements. So we're hopeful that DENREC will be held accountable, that DAPE will say these professional engineers didn't do their job and take action, and then eventually we do hope that the courts will take the right appropriate action, because the whole thing is fraudulent. And we hope that eventually one Colin Amara gets indicted for fraud. He was the secretary, a secretary-level guy in Markell's cabinet. The permit, that's a fake. And that's about it, Kevin, because I have to go now, and I'm in sunny California, but it's raining finally. And John will carry on and tell you exactly the rest of the story.
Lindsay Levine, the Green Machine, thank you for being with us, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All the best. Bye. John Nichols, it's an ugly story that Lindsay has portrayed for our listeners. There's apparently this unbreachable contract between the ratepayers, signed by the legislators, signed by the governor, and approved by the legislators, that implies we're going to the people of Delaware will have to pay some massive penalty if we cancel out our agreement to buy the darn current made by Bloom Energy. How do we get around this?
Well, I think to ask the General Assembly is to go ahead and pass legislation or attempt to pass legislation that alleges that Bloom Energy has and the department are fraudulently operating in the state. The issues that Lindsay raised regarding the amount of natural gas that they're permitted to use in Delaware, as permitted by Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, is a lesser number than it is permitted under the fuel cell tariff. So on the basis of the permit, they're operating illegally. The fact that the sulfur waste was never disclosed, the fact that the sulfur waste was disclosed by Bloom Energy, but not noted by the Delaware Department of Natural Resources, says that this should be declared invalid. And hopefully legislators will see fit on a bipartisan basis to repeal this legislation, and let's see Bloom sue the state of Delaware or the Delmarva Power ratepayers for the money that they are collecting, we believe, illegally. That's the way to resolve this, and there's been multiple court challenges. Only one has had limited success. In Delaware, one of their competitors, Bloom's competitors, Fuel Cell Energy, filed as a co-plaintiff, arguing that their constitutional rights were violated because they were not allowed to compete, that they, being Fuel Cell Energy, were not allowed to compete in the state of Delaware. I also was party to that lawsuit, and I was dismissed because the judge said, even though I'm the ratepayer that's paying Bloom Energy as a customer of Delmarva Power, I didn't have standing for reasons that I think were wrong. But the co-plaintiff, Fuel Cell Energy, that case was allowed to go forward. But for various reasons, what happened was, without admitting guilt, that is to say, having this crony deal set up for the benefit of the company, the state of Delaware agreed that going forward, they would allow other companies to compete for any fuel cell business that becomes available. But given the toxic nature of this political deal, it's unlikely that there will be any other fuel cell companies doing business in Delaware by virtue of a feed-in tariff. So it's sort of a hollow victory, but a victory nevertheless. It should give the PSC a reason to list Bloom Energy as the crony company receiving the money, because with the lawsuit settlement, it's been acknowledged that if there are other contracts offered, there might be multiple companies, so it behooves them to break out the the one company that's currently receiving money as a line item and list Bloom Energy. That discussion will take place at the next, we hope, Public Service Commission hearing, but it could be several hearing dates away. But
and to recalibrate our listeners, the original purchase agreement was on a non-competitive basis. Basis. And those of you in business with a business background and business experience who are listening, you understand what abuse that can lead to. Well, I guess ultimately, if the state decides to terminate the contract, Bloom Energy has the option of placing a lien against a sovereign state. And I don't know how that plays out, but I think we live in something of a post-constitutional world.
Arrangement, because Delmarva Power is the company that is collecting the money from their customers and paying it to Bloom Energy, but it's under the authority of the feed-in tariff, which is in turn based upon the legislation. So they're not going to get the money from Delmarva Power. It's not the state that's obligated, it's the ratepayers. So I think they'd have to be placing a lien, if they were doing that, against all the customers that owe them the money, which it would just be a nightmare. But if the Legislative Assembly doesn't do something about this, Bloom Energy is going to receive $500 million. And this is a company that was additional on top of the $100 million already received. This was a company that was supposed to go ahead with a public offering, but that public offering has failed to materialize. Probably, although we're not.
I think probably because of your good efforts and the efforts of Lindsay Levine, the Grain Machine. John, we're going long on this segment. Can you give a quick 15, 20-second look ahead to our listeners what might be happening next in the Bloom Energy saga in Delaware?
Well, as I said, the Delaware Public Service Commission is going to have to see fit to list Bloom Energy as the company receiving this largesse, and we would hope the General Assembly takes up this during the next session beginning in January, and they at least introduce a bill in a Democrat-controlled House, Senate, and the governorship. At least introduce the bill so that we can talk about it, and maybe our friends on the other side of the aisle will take action.
John Nichols, thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us on the show. Appreciate it, Kevin.
And thanks to Lindsay Levine, who had to leave because he's out in Southern California where, in fact, it's raining today. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. We're broadcasting live from our flagship station in Philadelphia on 1360 AM and around the world on the Internet at CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And they all end in .com. You stay with us. We'll be back for the final segment in just 4 minutes and 1 second.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night at Concord Bridge in Trenton. for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and www.ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to the Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 1 p.m., log on to www.roarradio.net, roarradio.net, and at 6 p.m., log on to thepunditpress.com. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone, anywhere on the planet by calling 832-999-1199. I'm Kevin Wade, joined by Sharon Angle. It's great to be working with Sharon again. Sharon, we're coming up in the final segment of the first show of the week, and our guest is on the line. Would you please make the introduction?
Yes, Kevin, it is my pleasure to introduce Peter J. Pitts, a former FDA Associate Commissioner who is currently president of the Center for Medicine in the Public Interest, a nonprofit that gets funding from the pharmaceutical industry. Peter, welcome to Conservative Commando's radio show.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm just another former senior government official here to help.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's great to have you on, and especially to discuss your article, Obamacare Slippery Slope to Single-Payer System. Talk to us a little bit about the slippery slope. Now, we've been assured this will work, and yet we continue to hear about failures. The exchanges are failing, the co-ops are failing, and now you're talking about the big insurance companies. Tell us more about this slippery slope that we see Obamacare sliding down.
Sometimes there's no joy in being right. When this bill was being debated in Congress, a lot of us in the healthcare community recognized early on that there was some fundamental flaws in the design of the Affordable Care Act. And one of those flaws was that you can't force sick people into a healthcare system unless you have an equal balance of healthy people coming in. And that certainly has not happened. Many young healthy people, like my 20-year-old sons, for example, recognized pretty quickly that since you can't be turned down for a pre-existing condition, the penalty that you pay for not having insurance is far less than the copay that you have to pay the premiums for an insurance policy. So young people have not been flocking to these exchanges. So the math is upside down. But the nefarious part here, kind of depending on your appetite for conspiracy theories, is that it was really designed to fail. That President Obama, when he was a senator, and even before that, said quite regularly he supported a 100% single-payer government-run healthcare system. So now that the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is failing those who need it the most, because even with low premiums, copays are too high and deductibles are out of reach for a lot of people. people are now going to say, well, now that insurance companies can't afford to offer Obamacare insurance policies, what we really need is more government control, a single-payer system. So I think people are saying, well, we worked with the marketplace. They couldn't make it happen. Now we need a complete government takeover of healthcare, which really completely ignores the reality that it was the enlarged government role in healthcare that's caused this problem in the first place.
And how would single payer be different than the present Obamacare system? What's the difference? Define single payer a little bit for our audience.
Oh, that's a really good question. So a single payer system like they have in some countries in Europe is where there really is no private marketplace, where everything runs through the federal government. In many cases, doctors are employees of the federal government. Hospitals are owned by the government. The only insurance policies that are available are through the government. There's zero marketplace intervention in the system. And that means higher taxes, obviously, because you have to pay for this. But it also means a significantly limited choice in the type of health care that you get. Basically, it creates Uncle Sam MD. So rather than your physician being able to decide what medicine she should order for you or what type of procedure you should have at the hospital, a government body will decide all of those things. So it really is kind of a one-size-fits-all healthcare system, which will be good for some people, bad for others, but it really completely goes against the grain of where we're going as a society with science, which allows medicine to become much more precise, much more personalized. And, and the president speaks a lot about the value of innovation and the value of personalized medicine. But when you go to a single-payer government-run healthcare system, you destroy that, which is why the U.S., which is one of the few large countries that does not have single-payer, is the driver of innovation all around the world.
Peter, this is Kevin Wade. Quick question. Isn't the VA system a single-payer system today?
That's exactly right. The VA, the Veterans Administration system, is a single-payer system. And the result is, even though they get the lowest prices, which I think they should, obviously we want our men and women veterans to get the lowest prices possible, but they also have the fewest choices possible. The VA healthcare formulary, for example, the drugs that are available to veterans using the VA system is terrible. It's far more limited than even Medicare or Medicaid. It's a sham. That's what you get with a government-run healthcare system. It's completely cost-based. It puts quality of care second. It puts government regulation first. And the result is higher taxes, lower quality of care. And when you have lower quality of care, you end up having much more expensive care. These people get sicker. They end up in the hospital. They can't work. They're not productive. And these are all things that are happening in other places of the world. In fact, many countries, developed countries in Europe, Australia, Canada, Japan, for example, they're realizing that they've got to move away from a single-payer system. It's more of a hybrid system where the government plays a large role and private payers play a large role as well. People who have the resources should be able to buy their own health care. I mean, the debate now in Washington over the concept of a Cadillac health tax means that if you want a very comprehensive, expensive policy and you're willing to pay for it, the government wants to tax it because the theory is that it's inequitable. That if you have more resources, you shouldn't have better health care. And that's just not the way the real world works. In a market-based system, competition drives better choices for everybody. And what's happening now is that people further down the economic ladder are having fewer and fewer choices, and being forced into bad health care is not good health care policy. It's not a victory by any stretch of the imagination.
And if you're the unhappy customer, so to speak, you're the unhappy payer or audience in a single-payer system, say in the VA system, who do you take your complaints to? Because the news stories that filter out is that no one really seems to care if a bureaucrat has botched your processing of your application or your scheduling or your admission. No one seems to care because you have no choice.
Well, you take your complaints to the dinner table or your local bar or to a barbecue. And I think that's really important because as we're entering into a national election cycle, almost everybody knows somebody who's been done into service by Obamacare. Their insurance has become more expensive, or it's been canceled, or they can't afford the deductible in the hospitals or the copay at the pharmacy because insurance policies were sold with a bit of a lie. The lie was, now that you have insurance, you have health care. And that's not the way it works. If you have a serious condition and your health care insurance policy does not cover the drugs your doctors want you to have, you're in a bad place. You go to the hospital and you have a $5,000 copay that they didn't bother to tell you about when they were trying to make you sign up so that the president could announce large numbers for success, you're going to be in a bad place. And so when politicians start touting the success of Obamacare, everybody knows somebody, oftentimes it's them, who've had a bad experience. And a lot of politicians, as they used to say on the I Love Lucy show, they have a lot of explaining to do when it comes to what's really happening now relative to this botched effort at healthcare reform.
I had a discussion with someone who's very knowledgeable, in terms of a political sense, political wins. And he said, Kevin, this is an old issue. Obamacare is an old issue. It doesn't even poll strongly anymore. And I said, my answer was Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act 2010, hurts people every day. It hurt people yesterday. It's going to hurt people tomorrow. And the rightful thing for people who are in public service and public office is to remove that pain, to get rid of what hurts the vast number of people. There are more people hurt by Obamacare than have been helped.
I think that there's a large degree of truth to that. And obviously, it's a big bill. There's lots of stuff in it, and there's some things in Obamacare that I think are good. I think, for example, that a young adult under the age of 28 should be able to be covered under their parents' policy. One of my children certainly is. I think that's a good idea that insurance companies shouldn't be able to turn people with pre-existing conditions. But these are not things that couldn't have been fixed easily without the pretty bald-faced lie that government health care was going to be free and universal and everything was going to be lovely and that angels would be singing in the streets. We could have done these things sanely and simply as opposed to trying to do a complete takeover, which many people in the president's party wanted to do. And I think now that the Obamacare law is proving to be unworkable, they're going to say the problem isn't too much government interference. The problem is too little. And that frightens me.
No, Peter, that is always, if you follow liberal policies, not in this country but around the world, whenever a liberal policy fails anywhere in the world, its advocates, its proponents will say it's because we weren't bold enough to go far enough. But they can never go far enough because fundamentally it doesn't work. Sharon, I'm sorry to intrude on your interview.
To take a break now. Peter, can you stay with us through this break? We'd like to talk to you more on this subject.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter Pitts. We're talking about Obamacare here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. And we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM FM 24/7. These are all .coms. And we'll be right back after this break with Sharon Angle, Kevin Wade, and our guest, Peter Pitts, talking about Obamacare's slippery slope. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Our mornings at 9 a.m. log on to the Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 1 p.m. log on to www.roarradio.net, roarradio.net, and at 6 p.m. log on to the Pundit Press. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any telephone on planet Earth by simply calling 832-999-1199. Country code 011 if you're calling internationally, trying to get into this fair country by telephone. Sharon Angle, great guest. Why don't you pick it up?
Yes, our great guest is Peter Pitts, and we've been talking about that slippery slope that Obamacare is on towards single-payer insurance. And it was interesting that you said right in the beginning of your article, Peter, that depending on your taste for conspiracy theory, Obamacare was designed to fail, that the president knew everything that everyone else knew, and yet continued to go forward. So did the Congress. And you say that the ultimate goal is the single-payer system. How does that work when we have autonomous states, and we have these states now rejecting Obamacare and have been rejecting it ever since its inception? They were not able to get, they were able to get very few states to even put up an exchange. So how can they just go ahead and do a single-payer system around us? You've opened this question up, and now I'm concerned as you are.
Well, good question. I mean, one of the ways to help make things better is to really rethink the way insurance is regulated in this country. Right now, it's regulated on a state-by-state level. So you've got 51 different ways you can buy insurance, and 50 states and the District of Columbia. So the insurance plan I have for my wife and family costs more in California than it does in New York and less in Wisconsin. It makes no sense. Insurance companies can't achieve the scale of this country. They can't take advantage of numbers to lower costs, and the government refuses to do anything about that. But I suspect that if they want to implement a single-payer system, they find a way to draft legislation pretty quick to take the authority away from the states and put it inside the Beltway. And that's certainly not the solution. You don't want to centralize and give the power to the government. You want to remove the barriers so that the private marketplace can take advantage of the economies of scale. So if the government was serious about putting a single-payer system in place, I think one of the first things they would do would give themselves elasticity to sell health care policies across state lines, which, by the way, is exactly what they've done with the federal exchanges that were held to be legal in the Supreme Court. So the precedent of a national insurance policy through the federal exchanges is already in place.
Wow. So do we have enough time left in the president's term of office to be able to implement single payer, or will he go out of office before this can be done and give us an opportunity to rethink the whole insurance and healthcare policy that we have in place?
Well, I think the logical part of me wants to say that with minimal time left in his administration, such an enormous undertaking would probably not be in the offing. That being said, at least in my opinion, just when you think something worse can't happen in this administration, it finds a way of happening. But if I were a betting man, I would say not. I think that the excuse that Nancy Pelosi gave when she voted for the Affordable Care Act was, if you remember, we have to vote for it so we can see what's in it. Remember that? Well,
yes.
Now that we've experienced what it actually looks like, I think that a lot of people who are running for office whose only goal during the elections is to get elected are going to realize that there are a lot of people out there who are extraordinarily angry, and they're going to start saying we need to run away from this as quickly as possible. And the only person out there who's calling for a real serious look at a government-run single-payer system is Bernie Sanders, and he's not getting a lot of traction. So I would say, between now and the next president, we're probably looking at, unfortunately, more of the same.
Well, and it's interesting to me, you mentioned Bernie Sanders, but wasn't it Hillary Clinton that first brought the subject up, and Barack Obama said, we can't do that, and then he implemented it. So I'm wondering, has she really retracted, or is she still bent on that same goal?
I'm not really an expert in kind of politics of the presidential candidates, but Hillary Clinton seems to me, if nothing else, certainly extraordinarily pragmatic. She's going to say what people want to hear, and I don't think people are ready to talk about more government interference in healthcare. I think they're tired of it. I think they realize it doesn't work, and that calling for a bigger government bureaucracy for healthcare is not going to be in any candidate's best interest.
And yet, you wrote in your article that there are activists in several states, including California and Colorado and Ohio, that have advanced ballot initiatives that would impose single payer.
That's right. I mean, the states really are, the laboratories of experimentation in healthcare, and there are a lot of people on the far left who are in control of their state legislatures who want to see if they can put a single payer system in place in their state. It's I certainly wouldn't want to live in those states. I mean, I think Vermont tried it, failed miserably quickly. I mean, the one thing about single-payer systems is that they fail very fast because the bureaucratic burden is so enormous on the top end that no one can ever figure out how to make it work. And the answer is it can't be made to work because you really need, in a country of scale like ours, a free market economy to find options for people that need health care.
Well, and as Kevin Wade is so apt to point out, and me as well, the VA as a single payer, and it has failed. We're right up against the end of our show. Peter, could you tell our listeners how to get a hold of your article and also to follow any other articles that you've written?
Well, thanks so much. Well, they can visit our website, which is cmpi.org. A lot of good stuff there. Or just Google Peter Pitts on Google News. Lots of good articles on many different topics, timely, and I welcome everybody to the healthcare battle.
Thank you so much, Peter Pitts, for being our guest here on Conservative Commando's radio show.
Thank you very much.
Well, Kevin, we're at the end. Again, it doesn't seem possible.
It goes fast, doesn't it, Sharon? We had a great lineup today. We had Jude Eden, female Marine, did a tour or so in Iraq, and she was talking about, the pragmatic realities of women in combat, and she has a wonderful voice and firsthand knowledge to talk about the realities that the liberal left doesn't. Then we had a tag team at 4:05 with our returning guest, the Lindsay Levine, the Green Machine, and John Nichols, who's fighting the Lonely Warriors fight against the established regime in the first state of Delaware, seeking to add to the $100 million surcharge that people in 3 counties have already paid to Bloom Energy. And then Peter Pitts brought some well-reasoned analysis of the flaws and failures of the Affordable Care Act and what some people would like to see become single-payer. Sharon, it's always great to work with you.
Well, thank you, Kevin. But we're out of time.
We are out of time, so let me wrap as I like to. God bless and Godspeed, my friends, and may God save the United States of America.